Okay, so once more we're here with David Whitehead. Thank you, David, for coming along and taking some time with us again. And today I think we're going to be looking at awareness and how we would cultivate this, and perhaps even why. So thanks, David, for being here.
Thank you, Louise. Thanks for having me back. Pleasure to be here. And absolutely, this idea of awareness is very, very key. I think anybody listening to this that is interested in what's happening in the world would agree that everybody could use a little bit more awareness in their lives. And we want to talk also about how important this is on an individual level as well.
Excellent. And of course it's going to also be reflected in how we see the events unfolding in the world, and how we can pay more attention, be more observant, I would imagine, to how this makes us feel. I know a lot of the news that we see is very emotive and often leaves us feeling powerless and or scared or angry, or all the other range of emotions that we can go through. So I'm interested to find out how paying attention and cultivating awareness can help us see another side to what we're experiencing right now.
Absolutely. And I think there's nothing more important than this. And I just want to say, before we get into this section here, that all of these sections that Louise and I have been going through are really a part of a bigger work that I've been doing for many years, been putting together. And they're almost like little mini presentations of a giant presentation that I've put together. And I was able to do a very, very, very condensed version of this at the Free Your Mind conference in Philadelphia that just passed very recently. But 1 hour was simply not enough, as you can tell when Louise gets me on a show like this and we start talking. There's so many elements that I can weave in. So I'm actually working on putting this into a recorded presentation from start to finish, so I can take as much time as I need to go through all of the slides that I've put together. And I'm also knee-deep in writing a book about this as well, which is why I've got so many different thoughts going through my head when I'm thinking about these subjects, as I'm deeply involved in the research, and I'm very excited to be able to release a book on the subject coming soon. So people can look forward to that. And I think it'll help me conceptualize my thoughts a bit more and put them on paper so they don't haunt me so much. And then also to give people some tools. Like, this is what I want. When I'm seeking information, I want to have something that I can take home. I want homework. I love homework. I love going home to, hearing the information initially and then going back and going through all the links and going through all the sources and thinking about it and reading books on my own. I love that process of making it my own journey. And I encourage everybody that's listening to do just that. Don't just listen to me. Go and check the sources. When I'm talking, I'm coming from my perspective, which is all I can do. And I'm rendering this in my own unique way. This is my own artistic sort of philosophical approach to it, but I think that you'll find a lot of value from hearing out the sources and going through these concepts and then taking it back home and looking into it for yourself. So with that said, we will talk about this section. I've called it Ancient Methods of Cultivating Awareness. And before we get into the methods of cultivating awareness, we should maybe say a little bit about what awareness is and why we should be cultivating it in the first place. The way I look at awareness is it's multidimensional. We are aware on many different levels, and there's many times that we maybe aren't aware that we're aware, but we are. And so on a physical level, your body has a sort of its own aware intelligence, and this has been spoken about by many, but I really love the way that Wilhelm Reich put it when he was talking about this, and we spoke about this briefly in another episode where we were talking about somatic intelligence and the body-mind connection. And what that's really saying is that your body is in itself its own little universe. It's like a micro-universe. When you get into the cellular level of your body, and I've spoken to some award-winning cellular biologists and really got into their brain about this, and they would tell you that each cell, and of course your body is made up of anywhere from 70 to 100 trillion cells, okay, and each cell is made up of about an equal amount of atoms, and we could keep zooming in further and further. But if you look at the cell itself, it is its own universe, just one little cell. And so that's the very, very, very micro level. And then when you realize that your body is made up of 100 trillion of these things, you'll realize that you have a sensory system that needs to be working harmoniously with itself. We were talking about harmony in the last episode. Well, if any of those structures in your cell start to break down or come into a place of disharmony, then you're going to start to have dis-ease, or you're going to have illness, or you're going to have something go wrong with your body and your functions of your body. So the idea here is when you become aware of that, when you become aware of what your body is doing, what all the organs are doing, how your brain is interpreting signals constantly and listening to your body, and they're exchanging information, and there's a dialogue happening all the way throughout your body. Just as there's a dialogue happening between all living things and all things in the universe, there's a correspondence, there's a resonance, there's a communication that's going on. So when you're in just sort of a tunnel vision type superficial mindset only, and you're not aware of what's going on that level, on both the micro level and the macro level, then you are really going to start finding yourself lost in life. You're going to find yourself, not being inspired. You're going to lose that motivation in life because you don't even have the awareness that you would need to be able to see meaning in life. That's really what we need here, is to be aware of the deep meaning of why you're here, of who you are, and how when you're interacting with your environment, there's a communication going on all of the time. And a lot of that communication is what you would call subconscious. It's not even in the present mind of your everyday activities. It's taking place in the background, So when you take something from the subconscious and bring it to the conscious, all of a sudden you have what's called awareness of that thing or that idea or that concept. So we need to cultivate this awareness of our bodies, of our thought processes. We were talking about how a lot of our mental content is extremely negative and self-defeating in many cases, and maybe we're not even aware that that's what it is. We just think that's normal. We become used to that. We become used to feeling tired and having anxiety and having our stress levels jumping off the charts every few minutes and all of that. We just become used to it. And the problem is we adapt to something that is not healthy and not good. So when you have awareness of what it was that brought you into that state, now you can address it. Now you can bring light to it. You can shine a light on it. That's what awareness is. If you think of it as you're walking into a pitch black room, you have very, very little awareness of your surroundings because humans have very poor night vision. Would you agree? But if you bring a flashlight into that room and you click it on, all of a sudden you now have a little bit more awareness of what's going on in that room because you have a light that you can point at it so that you can see what's going on. But what if I were to tell you that you also have deeper aspects of awareness encoded in your being, that you have what is many times called the sixth sense? We've got the five senses that interact with the physical world, but we also have the sixth sense of where you feel a hypersensitivity on a level where I believe all the sixth sense is when all five senses are sharpened and fully engaged. It produces this super sense where you can feel people in the room around you. You can, sometimes I've had situations, this is just from years of training where, you open up a cupboard door, you weren't even looking, and there was a glass on the edge of the door, and it just starts, or the edge of the cupboard, and it just starts to fall off. And I found I didn't even look at it. I didn't cognitively even know this glass was falling off out of the cupboard, and I would just catch it. Just subconsciously, completely, just spontaneously. And I would look and be like, oh my God, I just caught this cup. I didn't think about it in my conscious mind. It just sort of happened. My body reacted on its own. And so you see in martial art films, they'll have the guy blindfolded, and he's got to fight all these guys blindfolded, or he's got to grab koi fish out of the pond blindfolded. And these kinds of things. He's got to serve tea blindfolded, without spilling it and all of this. And this is just because the training was to develop and cultivate this super hyper awareness so that obviously for martial art purposes, you could be a lot more effective in perceiving danger. So we have all these things, built in us already, but when you cultivate them, when you strengthen them, when you reinforce them and you train them, and develop them, then you can definitely achieve greater levels in all of the sensory realms. So that being said, the reason why ultimately we need awareness, well, on an individual level, we've kind of gone through that. On a collective level, We need to be able to be aware of what's actually happening in the world around us, because our society is made up of individuals. Our society, Krishnamurti used to talk about this. He's like, we always talk about the evils of our society and how corrupt our society is, etc. But we forget that that society is made up of you and me and all of us together as individuals. So if the society as a whole is exhibiting these negative behaviors and allowing these dictators and tyrants and sort of darker forces to come into positions of power in our own institutions, then that's a sign that there's a lack of awareness of what's happened. There's a lack of awareness of the root cause behind why that happened. There's a lack of awareness about the solution, because most people that are making up society aren't even aware of themselves. They aren't even aware of these things on a micro level. So how can we have a positive society if we can't first heal that? And that's where my cautionary message comes forward, where I'm echoing some of the great teachers I've learned from as well, which is that when we try to change the system, try to come up with a new financial system, try to come up with a new political system, try to fight the tyranny with the weapons that they themselves have handed us, etc., then what tends to happen is we move into a different form of collectivism. When collectivism, as opposed to individualism, is defined as, the greater good for the greater number. How many times have we heard that throughout history? If you study communist China or socialist Europe or communist Russia or fascist Germany or capitalist corporatist America, whatever you study, you're going to start to see they're all different expressions of the same thing, which is collectivism at its core, which means you're not having a group of people come together that are individually empowered and enlightened. You're having a mob of people come together where they're sort of acting as like automatons in this big Borg-like soup, and they're not thinking individually and they're not thinking critically, and all it takes is one leader to come up and give one command or one hypnotic suggestion for the whole mass of people, and you see the whole crowd or the whole movement of people just sort of move as one, and they're all like, they think they've changed the system, but really they've just come into another form of tyranny and dictatorship. So awareness of these things is what is going to heal these things, very simply. So if we just get into some of the methods then. In the martial art tradition, there is a very interesting form of yoga, for lack of a better word, that has to do with the hands, putting your hands to work. And I have an amazing quote from Michel de Montaigu, who says, "Behold the hands, how they promise, conjure, appeal, menace, pray, supplicate, refuse, beckon, interrogate, admire, confess, cringe, instruct, command, mock, and what not besides, with a variation and multiplication of variation which makes the tongue envious." And I like that because he's talking about how many functions the hands have and how your hands are what actually separates you from all the other forms of life in creation. So they have what are called the kujikiri, which are these 9 hand seals, which are 9 movements of the hands. And there are many variations to this. There's also a lot of nonsense out there related to this tradition. This tradition is associated mostly with the art of ninjutsu, the way of the ninja. But it originated as a form of yoga coming out of ancient India, actually. But it's basically just working with your hands. I believe we mentioned this briefly, but this is a science. There's some great videos that I've posted on this about how to do this. And there's 9 different signs. And with each hand sign, you're putting a different concept in your mind as you're doing the physical action. So this is a way that you're trying to connect the mind and the body through the use of your hands, which are hypersensitive on the fingertips and everything. They're very pliable and flexible. And you're trying to find weaknesses in your fingers, weaknesses in your hands. You're trying to stretch your hands. And at the same time that you're moving your hands, you're putting conscious intention in your mind. And each one has a different reflection to it. So, and 9 in some of the Eastern traditions is associated with creation. That number 9 is associated with creation. I've had some people email me and go, "No, the number 9 is satanic, man. It's a satanic number." How can the number 9 be satanic? It could be used in maybe a satanic way, as anything can be. That's like saying a pyramid is an evil symbol just because it might be used on the money to talk about the banking cartel or whatever. But that doesn't mean pyramids are evil. It's just a symbol that can be used for either a good, positive purpose or a negative one. So the number 9 in these ancient traditions is actually talking about creation. So what do you use to create with in the world? Well, you use your hands. You put your hands to good work. And in the martial arts, of course, we use our hands in various ways to defend ourselves and to understand mastery of the human body. So this is just one method that they would use to cultivate creative power and awareness. And it's very, very interesting. Another form they would use, which would be is called kata. Kata, K-A-T-A. This is obviously coming more out of the Japanese tradition, but each martial arts style has a form of movement where you're working it on your own. It's like a physical form of meditation. And you're working on getting your mind to work in synergy with your body, and you're trying to produce a positive effect. I know for myself personally, when I practice kata or shadow boxing or yoga or stretching or whatever, I feel very balanced after. I feel very calm after. I feel very empowered after. I feel adaptive and flexible, and I definitely feel more aware. I feel much more aware. If you, for those that are out there that train martial arts, if you just go in without warming up or moving your body at all, you just jump right onto the mat and you start sparring or grappling or whatever, things aren't going to click that well right off the bat. It's going to be, you got to get your body kind of tuned to that frequency. So these katas and these movements and these different ways of really bringing your awareness to its full place are ways to bring yourself into your flow, to your best vibe, or to get yourself in the zone and to focus your mind. So that's another method. And some of these katas, as we were saying with the ancient dances, these katas are also representative of universal patterns. They're expressions of sacred geometry of the body. And when aligned properly, and when moving as one unified field, the movements of kata can symbolize the ebb and flow of the universe, the dynamic movement and flow of all things, and is geometric and representative of any possible way in which we can move in combat and also in art form. The various patterns expressed in kata contain both straight and curved lines, quarter, half, and full circles, including circles that touch and overlap each other. They also contain squares, diamonds, rectangles, triangles, crosses, crisscrosses, hearts, figure eights, overlapping and elongated figure eights, octagons, and other patterns. So when the universal pattern is repeated and meshed on, then it's believed that you've achieved a higher level of awareness because you are communicating with the universe. So you're communicating with your universe, which is a reflection of the fractal nature of the universe. So that's the one method so what we're really saying there is movement, the art of movement. You don't have to just do these ancient katas. You can find a method of movement that is really, with that kind of intention behind it, with that kind of awareness behind it, can produce that same exact effect. And then moving on here, I have an amazing graph here that I've put together that I'll send to you, Louise, which it's a tradition that comes again out of the Japanese tradition. It originated in the Shinto cosmology, and it's expressed very much throughout Aikido and Jiu-Jitsu and Karate. Aikido tends to talk a little bit more about these principles, but they're talking about the 3 main shapes: square, circle, and triangle. And they would have correlations to these different things. So the square would be talking about explosive movements, body, will, justice, beauty, something that is solid, your destiny, the past, a mirror, the sun. And when it comes to food elements, it would be rice, and in the body it would represent the digestive system. The triangle would be triangular movements. It would represent the mind, the intellect, truth, awareness. If you have like solid, gas, and liquid, this would be the gas principle. Purpose, future, blade, stars, salt, and physically it would represent the nervous system. And the circle would be circular movements. It would represent spirit, emotion, virtue, perfection. This would be expressing liquid type elements, life, being in the present moment. A jewel would be like the physical element. In the cosmos, it would be the moon, obviously, is a circle. Water, which water flows in a circular fashion. And in the body, a circulatory system. So you can see that all of these different elements are really just 3 different shapes that symbolize, when they do it in the calligraphy, any of these modalities here. And I have a good quote from a gentleman out of the Shinto religion. His name was Dr. Yukitaka Yamamoto, and he was a 96th generation Shinto high priest, and he said, the principle of Samisangen explains the mystery of life. Samisangen, which is talking about these symbols, Samisangen means the three elements that constitute the basis of all forms of existence. These basic symbols both explain the meaning of life and guide the destiny of human life. And we can see Samisangen operating on many levels throughout all of nature. So this was really, again, bringing you back to the principle of unifying these three principles, because all of these principles, the square, the triangle, and the circle, represent the body, the mind, and the spirit. And so when you unify that, you are cultivating your awareness on all levels, and you're expressing Sanisangan, which is the universal force. So, and then, of course, when we switch over to a more Western kind of philosophy, if you talk to someone like Dr. Walter Russell, whose work I highly recommend, especially his book, The Secret of Light, he says a great quote about all of this when he talks about the energy that moves all of us and all things. And he says, the electric energy which motivates us is not within our bodies at all. It is a part of the universal supply which flows through us from the universal source with an intensity set by our desires and our will. So he's talking about a force of electric energy that we can tune, like you're tuning a frequency or tuning a radio. We can tune them and align them to our desires and our will. And in order to do that, you have to first, of course, cultivate the awareness. And he has an amazing quote, what I'm going to finish on as well, that says, defeat I shall not know. It shall not touch me. I will meet it with true thinking. Resisting it will be my strengthening. But if, perchance, the day will give to me the bitter cup, it will sweeten the drinking. I will see beauty and goodness in all things. From all that is unlovely shall my vision be immune. So what he's talking about there is the ultimate awareness about knowing that there is no victory and defeat. There is no force that can really have power over you unless you let it. And it's all about what you're going to do to create that overall awareness of yourself and the world around you, to bring yourself to that level of consciousness, or of confidence, really, of confidence that only can come from self-awareness, that is going to allow you to drive your life with more passion, to be more motivated and complete in your life, and to have harmonious actions that reflect the best qualities of humanity in all the actions that you take in this life. So with this work and this concept, I definitely want to encourage people to just embark on activities in your own life that can help you generate more awareness in your daily activities. Awareness of your thinking patterns, awareness of what's going on in your body, awareness of what's happening around you and the people that you know, and awareness of what's happening on the big macro level, so that we can apply the right kind of consciousness and the right kind of awareness to these situations so that they can be healed.
I'm really glad that you've brought our attention, or our awareness, to this subject, because obviously it's of prime importance. And I'm also glad you brought up this principle of collectivism, and something that we're really keen to emphasize at the Full Circle Project is that although we're encouraging people to step up and join groups, form groups, communicate through the Full Circle network and so on, we're really at the same time encouraging people to step into their own, unique individual self and discover really who they are, remember who they are. So these two principles, I feel, are at work there that you've been describing, this kind of circle of coming together, of learning to respect each other and value each other, as a kind of initial step, but then also remaining aware and attentive and alert to the perhaps more masculine principle of motivation and direction, of mobilizing that energy that's being brought together in the circle. And that really, the way that you just described there, the circle and the triangle and the square together, this is almost representative of how the Full Circle also seeks to embody those those principles and become more aware of where all this is being generated from, our views and our decisions, and indeed the way that we're living and expressing our lives. So it's really very, very helpful to see it or hear it expressed from the point of view that you're giving us. And I wanted to ask you, David, a little bit more about the cultivation of awareness, particularly on the inner level, because I feel there's so much distraction. We're in a world of distraction for for obvious reasons. So the opposite way to go to me is inwards very often. So how would you recommend that we what are the methods that we can use to pay more attention to ourselves and discover what's inside us?
Well, the in the samurai tradition, they would have this idea where, because they were obviously a warrior class and they were constantly training, and they'd be at, if they had to defend the village or the kingdom or whatever, they'd be at war, and you had to get these guys to come back and actually integrate with society again, and to be benign human beings and not turn into a bunch of psychopaths. So this method of cultivating these principles and developing this philosophy throughout the warrior tradition was key, so that you could have balanced individuals that were capable of defending themselves and all that, but also could come back and still be a part of the everyday society, which we see a lot of soldiers struggling with today because they're not learning these things, and they're not engaged in right action, that's for sure. So to kind of answer your question about how to do it, what they would do is they would try to develop a connection with nature and with the objects around them. There was a deep connection to the objects that they would use. So if they were making tea, or they would be trimming the bonsai trees, or they would be gardening, or they would be practicing calligraphy or art or writing or whatever, these warrior classes were very sophisticated in really developing these things because it helped them get to a deeper connection with themselves and become very much aware on a different, more subliminal level. So what I would recommend is to mirror that in your life. Look around your room right now and look at the objects that you've collected. And maybe you've put pictures on the wall. Maybe you've got little trinkets or little Buddha statues or little whatever, a special rug that you put on the floor, or a chair that's been handmade or something like that. And try to formulate a connection to those objects. And I know a lot of people might think this sounds weird. I mean, what are you, connecting to a chair? What's that? It's just an inanimate object. Well, in this principle, nothing is inanimate. And especially something that was made with the hands of a human being to express something artistically. So when you're looking at, say, a beautiful piece of art, somebody put conscious intention into that. Somebody put time and energy into that. Somebody was trying to express themselves or express a principle or express beauty through that work of art. So if you just walk past it every day and just look at it, it's a nice decoration. It makes my house look good. It's got the whole feng shui thing happening, and everybody that comes in here thinks I'm rich because I got this beautiful painting on my wall. If it's only superficial, you will lose a deeper part of your awareness by doing that, by ignoring that. So I say form a relationship in a way with these different objects. Like I have objects in my house that really symbolize empowerment to me. So I have a katana sword that I received when I got my black belt, and it was very symbolic to me. It's got some beautiful symbols on there that express things that are close to me. Of course, the sword to me represents the mind. It represents truth. It represents justice. So, I have it there as a symbol of protection and empowerment in my home, and I feel very connected to it. I feel almost on an emotional level, like that's my sword. You almost make it almost a ritual thing in a way where you're appreciating it. That's all a real ritual should be, is just appreciation for the things that you have, and an appreciation of these things on a deeper level than just the superficial level. So start engaging in your everyday life. When you're getting up tomorrow morning to make your tea or your coffee or whatever you do in the morning, try to do it with intention. Think in your mind, all right, my hand is grabbing onto this cup. I am pouring this water. And I know people might think, what the hell, this is boring. Why are we doing this? But, bear with it. Try to be conscious of each action that you're taking. and recognize all of the things that have to align perfectly in order for you to be able to take those actions. Like, do you know what your body's doing inside as you move your arm and close your hand and open your hand? Like, you know that you're able to do that instantaneously without delay. There's no Skype interruptions. There's no signal interruptions, provided you're in a good state of health. And you're able to, in real time, manipulate your body and use your body. But all these systems, you got your circulatory system, your digestive system, all the organs in your body, all the functions of your brain, which we don't even understand today, is so complex and so intricate in order for us to move this body around. So when you start thinking about that, what you're doing is you're becoming aware of your body. You're appreciating your body. You're savoring the movements. You're savoring life. You're savoring the moment. And you're recording it and you're paying attention to what you're doing. A lot of these actions we do almost like second nature. We're just, I'm just doing it. I'm just doing this. I'm just getting through my day, and then I'm going to go to sleep, and then I'm going to wake up, and I'm going to do it again. And do you see what's happening is we're not even living life. We're ignoring life because we're no longer engaged in life. We're just letting it pass in front of us. And we can't wait for the next form of entertainment to happen for us, or the next form of entrancement that we can get into to distract ourselves from that. And we don't know why after doing this that we go home and we're depressed and we're sick, or we don't feel good about ourselves. And it's because we're not paying attention. We don't have the awareness of who we are and how amazing it is that we're alive and we're living and we're here and we're experiencing this life. So I would say that's a great place to start. And another thing to do is to form a connection with nature. That nature is our greatest teacher. The German philosopher Schelling said that nature is invisible spirit and spirit is invisible nature. And if you understand that they're extensions of different aspects of the same spectrum, that when you're out there walking in that forest or tending that garden or walking by that water or watching the sunrise and the sunset or watching the movements of the stars or paying attention to the cycles of the moon or whatever, you are connecting to the cosmos. You are connecting to, you're not just connecting to the external world, by the way, because it's the human being that brings meaning to these things. If without us here, they would be what they are. Maybe they have a meaning on their own, maybe don't. But in our experience, it's you that brings and generates meaning in the world. Nothing externally can give you that. And we keep trying to knock on that door and find something in the physical world to bring meaning. And I want everybody else to bring meaning to me. I want all these things to bring meaning to me, instead of realizing that it is you that animates those things. It is you that animates those people around you and those experiences around you and brings meaning to it. So do that. Live a life of meaning and intention, and connect to nature as much as you possibly can. Even if you're living in a big urban city, there's got to be a park somewhere. There's got to be a tree you can climb or sit and read a book under it somewhere. There's got to be a garden path somewhere around you. Even if you just have a balcony in some condo and you can grow some herbs or something, interact with nature. Watch how it works. And smell the smells and the fragrances of the flowers. You know, there's that saying, we don't stop to smell the roses. Well, start stopping and smelling those roses. I don't care if the guys listening to this think that's some kind of some girly stuff or whatever. Connect to your divine feminine and recognize that if you're unhappy in your life, it's probably because you've lost meaning in your life. This is what most depressed people say. Like, I don't have any meaning. I don't know why I'm here. I feel useless. I feel like I should just rather die. Are you kidding me? We're at that point where we've lost such connection to ourselves and the world that we're actually willing to end our lives because we hate it so much. Like, are we there at that point? If you're in that state, you have to recognize that that's not some natural state or some doctor is going to diagnose you with a brain disorder or a chemical imbalance disorder or whatever. Forget all that. You've lost connection to yourself. You've lost connection to nature. And how do you fix it? Well, get back in touch with it. And it's not easy, but it will happen for you. And you'll find the more you do this, pay attention to your breathing. Pay attention to the way you speak to people. Pay attention to how you talk to yourself. How about that? Let's start there. How do you treat yourself? Do you love yourself? Do you honor and respect yourself? Do you know yourself? Isn't that the oldest philosophical saying on this planet? It's written on stones all over the world. Know thyself, and you will know the universe. Isn't that what is said on the Oracle of Delphi and so many other places in different ways? Well, there you go. That's it. That's all you need to know. Know thyself. And you will now know how to experience fully this life. So it's about the awareness factor on so many levels. And I really recommend that you just start there. Start with tomorrow morning when you get up, and just try to project your day. And then remember what you did during your day. And go, okay, today I did an interview with Louise at the Full Circle Project. We had a good discussion. And now I'm going to go and take my daughter to the park. And then I'm going to go do this. And I'm going to savor each moment. And that's why it brings meaning. And then at the end of the night, I'm going to go, wow, I had a really kick-ass day today. I can't wait for tomorrow. And I'm going to sleep. And I'm going to remember my dreams. And then I'm going to get up, interpret those dreams while I'm making my coffee or whatever. And then I'm going to start a new day and a new experience, because every day, every time that sun rises and sets, you have a new opportunity to change something about your life or to change something about your situation. Every moment that passes that you waste doing something that is not a part of your experience here or a part of the reason why you came here, then you're now going to become subject to other people's will. And that's what humanity is facing. Because we've lost ourselves, we are now being guided and directed by people who know our psychology like the back of their hand. How do we know our psychology? We don't know crap about our psychology. They know about it, and that's why they're able to manipulate things to go their way. And they're living in the moment, these dark forces in the world. They're living in the moment. They're relishing the moment. Are they psychopathic? Yeah. Are they evil? Sure. But that doesn't mean they're not having a blast at our expense. So why don't we change that dynamic around and cleanse these toxins within so that we can cleanse the toxins externally and really achieve some kind of balance again in this world.
Well said, David, really. That's a great delivery. And I mean, there you touched on so much, and I wanted really to pick up also on what you said about the use of hands, because I immediately got the insight into how much is manufactured now, and how therefore it's hard to appreciate the objects around us because they're less and less handcrafted. And this is something that we can search out and appreciate and of course create for ourselves as well. Trying to find literally a handicraft, something that we can get our hands into, that we can connect to, and that we can become aware of how we're producing something beautiful. And just something there amongst everything else that really I could ask you 100 more questions and we could go on and on forever, because it really is such a rich area to be exploring. But that point about using hands, I think when we consider how we use our hands today, I mean, we even have dishwashers very often instead of washing our cup, as you suggested. I don't, in actual fact. So I do try and wash up with and use that time for meditation and connection. So I really can concur with what you're saying, about taking your time to really connect and be aware and be grateful for everything that we're doing, and really appreciating life before indeed we do lose it. So that was such a stimulating conversation there, David. Is there something else you'd like to add at this point about this topic, which actually
I just wanted to add one little point there was when we're talking about making things with our hands, it's also important. I live in a smaller town here, and we like to go to they have the sort of the what do you call it? All the vendors come, and it's like the Saturday market, and everybody gets together, and there's people that have made handmade soaps or necklaces out of shells that they've collected or rocks they've collected all over the island, or they've made musical instruments or little pots or little these little trinkets and these things, and these are made by people locally. And instead of going into Walmart and buying some crap that they've been generating through some slave labor somewhere, and selling these people out and making a fortune, we've got something that's, I say, support local, support those local gardeners. Go buy tomatoes from the guy up the road that's really into growing tomatoes, and he's getting his hands in the dirt and he's putting some love into that. We get these objects in your home that aren't so mass generated and mass produced. Like, just get rid of that stuff. I'm sure you can form a relationship. I'm sure that can bring some kind of meaning if you apply it. But I find there's just so much more richness in supporting the local markets and the local people, and contributing yourself by bringing art and things like that. And it's such a healthy dynamic in our society because it brings people together. You're bringing a piece of energy into your home that, was made by somebody that put a lot of love and care into that. And they wanted to express themselves through it. It's something that's unique. I love pieces that they don't have to be expensive. It could be like a $2 necklace or something that was made by, I went to like you go to Bahamas or you go to a different country, go to Ireland, and you come back with these little things that somebody made, and there's not expensive, but they put some care into it. And I'll cherish those over some $10,000 piece of pottery that some guy made, even though that's, whatever, he put his care into it, but I'll cherish those little things more than anything on a higher scale, and definitely getting out of the whole mass produced thing, because I think that the mass produced products are creating a mass produced level of consciousness in a way, where we're filtering out the individuality. We're creating this negative collectivism, mindset on all levels, and we're not finding uniqueness and artistic rendering anymore. And even the music is just like, it's all artificially generated, and all these people are like lip syncing the lyrics at concerts. Like nobody's getting up and bleeding their heart out on stage anymore, and that's what makes life beautiful. And it's the beauty that brings all of the good things, into the world. And it's the suppression of those things. When you see art dying, when art programs in school dying out in exchange for hard scientific left brain memorization, whatever, or just computer knowledge or whatever, we're filtering out the best of what it is to be a human being. And I think the question of the 21st century is, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be human? Because we're heading into a world, a highly technological world, where we are actually, they're playing around with the idea of transferring human consciousness into a computer machine. Like, that's where we're at. Nanotechnology and virtual reality and all of this. We're fleshing out all the beautiful things that it makes to be human. And it reminds me of that movie Equilibrium. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that with Christian Bale, where it's this dystopic future where he represents the police of the future. And what they do is they go around, and anybody that's been collecting these little trinkets of art and all that, they take them, they execute them, they burn all of their stuff, and they make sure that the rest of the population has to inject this drug every day to dull the human emotions, because they've been sold this lie that, human emotions are bad, and that's what caused all the wars and all that. And this is a great movie because it really illustrates where humanity's headed, and maybe where we're already at. And when we sell out of the soul of humanity, when we sell our soul to what? To the devil, to evil with a D in front of it, just means the agent of evil, right? When we sell our souls to that, then we are no longer human, and we will then live in hell on earth. Hell exists in your consciousness. It's not some burning fiery pit somewhere. That's just an allegory. It's something that can be created. But guess what else can be created? Heaven. How about that? Let's create heaven instead of moving into this dystopic future that is anti-human. So that's really what I want to say. It comes from the heart, and I know people out there can probably feel and appreciate that. And so what do you do in the face of all of this? Cultivate it in your own life every day, in spite of it, in spite of the lack of it in our society. Become a force for good. That's how you can achieve, that's how we can help. By on an individual level, starting with just supporting local people and getting together and having human conversations and looking people in the eyes. And when you shake somebody's hand, don't just do the casual, hey, what's up, man? Shake the hand or whatever. Like, do it with intention. Look them in the eye. Hug people more. Communicate. People are all like very antisocial now. They don't want to look at you. They don't want to touch you. They just want to like text you or something, or Facebook you. Like, I'll Facebook you. Like an emoticon. I can't express real emotion, but I can do it through these little happy faces on my thing. So let's move past that, and I think we'll see some positive change happen.
Oh, definitely. And I thank you again for your vitality and your excitement and your love of life, which you transmit so well. And I can certainly see, I'm constantly amazed how it seems we have to be pushed to the very edge of something, before we are able to realize what we're about to lose. And I certainly see life flowering around in so many ways as well, blossoming and flowering and literally springing back to life, but only because we're on the brink of death. And so perhaps that's just the way it is. That's the cycle of life and death, and it will continue in its mysterious and wonderful ways. And we'll continue in all our mysterious ways. David, we've reached, I think, about midway point perhaps here with the sixth sense that you've been talking about of awareness. It's about the sixth session, I think, that we've reached, and I'm looking forward very much to the next six that we've got planned. So until then, everyone who's listening, if you would like to write in at all with further questions or comments or something that you have to add to what David is expressing here, please do so. Write to me at information@fullcircleproject.net, and we look forward very much to sharing this information with you next time around. Thanks, David, and stay well.
Thank you so much, Louise, and thanks for all our listening and supporting. Definitely appreciate it, and we'll catch you guys soon.